So the stream should be going. The usual stuff. And I need to remember to change the stream information, change the title a bit. Oh, apparently I just saved to the 4 slot 4 times. So then we will just update information. The stream title should be changed, and yeah, gonna be real exciting today, guys. All 0 of you. I want to see if 1 second. Well, since there's no one here yet, I do want to see if 1 second game. Yes. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah. Well, that's figured out, and so now we just do this. Yeah, I should probably switch over to the proper Windows. I should also probably switch that. And actually, I can just play the game like this. Neat. So I guess I'll just start saying things for the VOD that nobody will watch. So just grinding more. Oops, I need to start the timer again. Just doing more grinding. I tried to do a lot of grinding off camera, but I only managed to get Pip-Boy and Pepper up to a decent level. Also, I need to actually be in the proper I can't just play from OBS, because otherwise I can't see. Also, Basket is on the verge of death already. Fantastic. But yeah, so we're just gonna spend some time getting Basket and Scrooble up to a good level, and then just Pep and Pap up to an even higher level. Just gonna take even like longer. And yeah, in the meantime, I'm just gonna kinda exist here. Cause you know, what are you gonna do? I'm just kinda existing. Well, it's gonna be boring, but you know, what are you gonna do? You gotta grind eventually, and you can't always do all the grinding off stream. Yeah. I was watching someone else do a Pokemon Black randomized Nuzlocke. And we got on the topic of Audino grinding, and they brought up that some people hack the game, like modify the ROM to guarantee Audino encounters, basically, in Rustling Grass. And I was considering doing that because I do actually know how to do that. I looked into modifying encounters for future reference. I decided not to because the whole point of this challenge is to see how long it would take to beat the game with only Route 1 Pokemon. And while guaranteeing Audino encounters wouldn't directly mess with, like, the gameplay, it would mess with the time. And so it's not something I want to do. Yeah, I will not learn Flail, because that doesn't seem useful. Yeah, so we are just gonna do this the normal way. And like, if you want to get really technical, then modifying the ROM to prevent Pokemon from evolving, technically does count as, like, shortening the playtime. But, like, I mean, to be fair, it is, like, the whole skipping the evolution process isn't very long in and of itself. But, considering that we're leveling, like, 6 Pokemon up to the level 100, probably, eventually, that definitely would, stack up pretty quick. And so that could be, a bit of a falsification of time, I guess. Anyways. Yeah. Just kinda here. I wonder if there's, like, because I've joined in a few other, Discord servers. I do not see anywhere to, like, just shove, my Twitch. Man. Well, on the right side, because nobody's watching, I don't have to worry about being entertaining. I can just sit here. Alone. Oh, hello, Dr. Massachusetts. How's it going? Welcome to the most exciting gameplay you've ever seen. Really riveting stuff. Yeah, how's it going? How's your day going? Welcome to the stream. Fucking infatuation. Infatuation is just the worst. I think it is Basket on the verge of death. Basket's kind of on the verge of death. It's probably fine. But yeah, this stream isn't gonna be getting interesting, like, anytime soon. Because, my goal is to get both Basket and Screwball here, up to level 60. And then Pep and Pap down here need to get up to, like, level 70. So we're gonna be here a while. Yeah, fucking Stoutland. Oh, hey. Thanks for the follow. That is appreciated. Out of curiosity, how did you find the stream? Was it, like, on Discord? Or did you just look for people playing Pokemon Black on Twitch? Or did fate somehow ordain itself so that you accidentally somehow typed in the link to this stream? Oh, huh, neat. Cool, cool. Well, glad to have you here. Now it's slightly less boring because it's not just me rambling to myself, for the most part. For the most part. Oops, that's the wrong thing. Yeah, I might as well, do this while I'm here. Nope, that is the wrong thing. There's the challenge rules. Because this is, in fact, a challenge run, as indicated by the title. Just Pokemon Black, but with only Route 1 Pokemon. They are not allowed to evolve. I can't use, like, potions and stuff in battle. Outside of battle is fine. Held items are fine. And no breaking the game to win. So, pretty simple stuff. Pretty basic. Okay, sure. Let's hear 'em. Huh. I should probably, like, figure out how to throw in some background music or something. It's not fair to do this. I could, like, turn on the game audio, but because I'm because I'm speeding up the emulator, which I just realized that is fucking with the time a bit, I guess. Whatever. Anyways, because I'm using the speed up function, the music would be all fucky. So yeah, riveting gameplay. I'm just kinda doing this. It's really exciting stuff. Really exciting. I wonder where, like, everyone is. It seems like just nobody exists today. Kinda weird. Well, your stony face. Ha ha ha. Funny joke. Good, because its name is Throw. Spend most of their lives flying. Up to 10 months non-stop? What? That's weird. Fucking infatuation. I'm infatuated and I'm asleep. Fantastic. Well, I mean, I'm not asleep anymore. Please actually attack. Yeah, that is bizarre. How even? I mean, I'm assuming that, like, that has to be, like, theoretically, because they have to, like, eat and stuff. And like, it's not like the hummingbirds. So, they're not gonna just get their food just staying stationary in one spot in the air. They can't just hover. So I'd assume that the 10 months thing is theoretical. I would assume. Because, like, how would they survive for, like, 10 months without food? I should probably, I'm gonna try something quick. Eating insects. I mean, I guess if they can, like, catch the insects in the air. One sec, I'm going to, just, music. Yeah, let's just, do... let's see about this. There's some music. That should sound good. Should. Also, the timer should still be going? Okay, good. Shouldn't be, like, too loud. Hopefully not too quiet, either. Anvil Town theme is just good. Something that Gen 5 gets right really well is the music. I do like the music. Here's a fun fact for you, Dr. Massachusetts. You know Getsis, the big bad of Gen 5? Getsis is not his original name. Like his, like it's a romanization of his Japanese name. And his Japanese name is G-CIS, Jesus. And that's his name, apparently, because of the notes or keys of the timpanis in his theme, G and C sharp. He is literally named after his own theme song, after the timpanis in his own theme song. It is the weirdest. Like with them, they were like, hey, let's put this really elaborate hidden meaning in his name, referencing this this architect from like who knows when, that like nobody knows. Gets this? Name him after his music. Name him after the notes in his music. It's just fucking bizarre. Where's the logic there? Just Jesus. It's just the weirdest. What level is Basket at? Not a good level. Yeah, Gen 5 is pretty decent. My big complaint about Gen 5 is really just, it's really just how little you get to play the game. Because, like, it feels like you're just constantly interrupted. It's just you're trying to do something and just, oh hey, call on the X-Transceiver. Oh hey, look, it's Sharon. Oh hey, look, it's Bianca. Oh hey, look, it's Team Plasma. It's just like, I want to play the game. If you're gonna have me fight somebody, then just have me fight somebody. Without, like, 10 paragraphs of dialogue. It gets especially annoying on, like, repeated playthroughs. When you're just trying to play the game, you've already heard all of this before. But no, you can't just play the game, you've got to hear all of this super important plot that you definitely have never heard of before. Like, the story isn't bad, don't get me wrong. It's just how forcefully it's delivered. I feel like that wasn't necessarily as big of a problem in previous games. Like, previous games still had roadblocks with, like, the evil team, gotta go beat them. But it didn't necessarily just drag the entire game to a complete stop just to say, hey, look, it's the evil team. They have this goal. Have they told you about this goal like 50 times before? Here, they'll tell you about it again. Just kinda annoying. Anyways, yeah. I don't know what else to talk about. I'm just kinda trying to level up the mons. Like, I could have just not streamed, but like, that would be a bit dumb. Because, like, I have a set schedule, and if I gotta grind on stream, then oh well. I can't just quit every time I need to grind. It's gonna happen eventually. It'd be really nice if I could actually encounter Adeno, though. I think this is like the third or fourth rustling grass in a row that hasn't been Adeno. It's definitely at least 3, if not higher. 3 times in a row. Because there was a Mulga, then there was a Mulga, and then there was Stoutland. I don't know if there was an Adeno before the first Emolga. So we're just kinda inexistent. I'm really not sure how to get my stream more noticed. It's just like, I guess I just gotta wait for people to exist. It's like I'm trying to share the fact that I'm streaming with people. But like, I don't currently have many avenues of doing that. I'm advertising on like all of one Discord server. Because that's the only Discord server I'm currently in that I can advertise in. Like, the struggle is trying to just get noticed. Cause like, on one hand, if I never tell anyone that I stream, then no one's gonna know that I stream. I just have to wait for, like, people to just randomly find me, which is very slow. I do want to learn Final Gambit. I don't know if we're gonna be using Soak a lot. Like, the only use for Soak is to be able to hit, like, ghost types with normal moves. Oh, hey, welcome back. I think I'm gonna get rid of Soak. If we had an electric type, if there was an electric type on Route 1, then Soak might be useful, but bleh. It would be good for, like, the fighting type gem. And not the fighting type Elite Four Marshall. But I don't know if this is, like, too quiet. I don't think OBS is picking up the music, like, at all now. Like, I didn't adjust the volume at all. Just the song currently playing is just quieter than the previous ones. Oh well. I'm not gonna mess around with it. I don't know how many people are online, but secret power. Sure, go for it. Why not? Go ahead. Let's hear the story. Infatuation. Stop. In fact, the last. Good. Huh. That is an interesting story. Gonna be honest, I'm not sure what the dry body is supposed to be, but oh, back to the focus center. Huh. Interesting. The worst parts of having to grind using Audino is the fact that you just might not even be able to make it to the Audino, assuming it even is an Audino. Damn it. Ooh, that takedown was bad. Huh. Yeah, typical. So, ooh, boogeyman, eat your vegetables to keep the boogeyman away. Usual thing. Oh, that's fun. Huh. Yeah. God damn it. Can't believe do this to me again. I just wanted to leave the grass. Huh. That's interesting. I wonder why there isn't a Pokemon based on a turkey. That would actually be interesting. Having like a turkey Pokemon that just like changes colors depending on things. Oh hey Ruby. Welcome to the stream. It's really boring. They're not really doing anything interesting, like, at all. It's just a lot of grinding. God damn it, can I please just leave the grass? A legendary turkey might be a bit weird. Might be a bit excessive. But I don't know. I should probably go to the Poke Center. Yeah, maybe. Turkey Pokemon. I don't know what it would be called. I'm not good with names. Naming things. Very complicated stuff. Okay, man, I feel like this I definitely know. Huh. I guess I just know a lot of Gen 6 music from like YouTube videos, I guess. Interesting. But yeah, this stream is just nothing really happening. Just a bit of talking. Maybe there's a chance we'll get done with the grinding before the 3-hour mark. And this stream won't just be grinding. But all things considered, considering that we've spent 40 minutes just leveling up this one basculin, and it's still not leveled up yet. It's not the right level anyways. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna be actually doing anything this whole stream. Just sitting here, vibing. Just listening to some nice music. Watching me run back and forth at extremely high velocities. Speeds, whatever, words. God, fucking damn it. Seriously? Every time? Every time? Every time. Don't mind me just slamming my head at like Mach 3 into a solid rock wall. Just. I mean, I suppose on the right side it's not really a wall, it's just the impenetrable bump. Impassable bump? Words. I'm just kind of saying things. I don't even know what the things I'm saying. Yeah, concussions. I mean, there's a whole Pokemon that's just. It just headbutts things. Granados. It is the headbutt Pokemon. So yeah, I don't think concussions exist. Then again, Granados just has. Granados is kind of weird. It's just the design. Because, like, it has that big dome head, right? But then, at the bottom of that dome head, where, like, that very distinct dome meets the rest of its head, there's, like, a ledge all the way around that goes out. So, like, the dome doesn't line up properly with the rest of its head. You know? You know what I'm saying? Wait, no, not Granados. It's evolution. Rampardos. Yeah, this dude. This dude. Let's see if I can... Dude. Dude. Okay. Yeah, this dude. Just like, look at that. That's just weird. Also, yeah. Just like, why? You know? Why? It just like looks... It looks like its head was just like cut in half, and then somebody just slapped something else on top where the rest of its head is supposed to be. It just doesn't line up. It's really weird. Anyways, back to exciting things. Oops. Oh well. Yeah, and speaking of concussions not existing, like, in the anime, isn't Team Rocket just always flying off miles into the sky? Like, forget about just concussions. Every bone in their body should be permanently broken by now. Just like, you cannot survive. I don't think they could survive even one of those, just a landing from that sort of height. Much less, like, a billion of that sort of thing. Is it possible that in Pokemon, everyone is actually immortal? Yes. They're also mentally impenetrable, as in, they're dumb. I haven't seen the anime but from what I know, they aren't the brightest. And neither is Ash and his companions, apparently. Everyone's just kinda using one collective brain cell. Fuck is this music? Cause like I know this is definitely Pokemon music. Oh, it's a mystery dungeon thing. Okay. I've never really played a mystery dungeon game, so no wonder I have no clue what the fuck this is. I've heard that mystery dungeon is good. Yeah, that's the end of that thought. Just... Okay, what do I say next? Fucking Morga. Constantly. So something to note is that Basculin is apparently pretty tanky physically, it seems. It feels like he's not taking a whole lot of damage from stuff. That's 86. Watchhog should, Pip-Boy should be taking less damage. But I feel like, Basket is... Huh. Weird. Very interesting. Oh, okay. Well, that's, helpful. Flash. 2 to 3 turns. 120 power, 100 accuracy. Yeah, that seems better than, whatever. Double edge. Hey, remember, what level? I'm hoping to get all these 4 up to level 60. So Basket is pretty close. Screwball is, a long ways off. And then I want to get Pep and Pap up to like level 70 or 75 maybe. If they level up pretty quickly, then I might go for 75. Yeah, I feel like, the 4 new ones probably need like a good 10 level advantage at least. Pep and Pap are Pep and Pap, so they're definitely going to need to be a higher level than the rest of the team. So, yeah. Level 60 for 4 of them. Level 70 to 75 for the pups. Oh yeah, I could probably start using, Flash. Flash, I think, is the move that we like. I forget if that's the name. Let's see, yeah. That's 120 power, and I'll just keep using it unless I'm put to sleep. Yeah, that would probably be a good idea to use that. Man, this is boring. What are you gonna do? We're now into the stream. So yeah, it's taken about an hour to level up Basket to the right level. And I mean, we're not even at the right level yet. The right level is 60, we're like 4 levels below that. But Flash. Kaput. It's a shame that rare candies aren't more accessible. It's like, being able to get rare candies would help, but like, there's not really a good way of getting lots of rare candies. Because the only way to get rare candies is to buy them with BP, I believe it stands for battle points. And you get those for doing the battle subway. And the battle subway, there's like 3 or 4 different types of subways that you can do to get BP. but the important thing though is that just doing any no matter what train you do, I think you have to get like a streak of 7 consecutive wins to get any BP, and I believe with like the singles train, you only get 3 BP for each streak of 7 until you reach a streak of 21, at which point you get 10 for that for reaching 21, and then you go back and then just your streak resets. And rare candies cost 48 BP each. That would require doing the battle subway for a very long time. So it's really not worth the time. It's really not good at all. Not a good price. Especially when we're using Route 1 Pokemon. Yeah, 7 consecutive wins for only 3 BP. And like on the bright side, you can also use BP to buy things like the vitamins, you know, like the calcium and iron. And those only cost 1 BP each. So for 7 consecutive wins, you can buy 3 vitamins, which is decent. It's pretty decent. It's not as great as just being able to buy them with money, but I guess Game Freak did not like capitalism. So yeah, it's just real fun stuff. Also, fuck off, Wallaby. So yeah, so let's say you got let's say you got a perfect 21 streak every time. So that's 21 battles, and you get 16 BP for that. To get 1 rare candy, you would need to get 3 perfect streaks of 21 to buy 1 rare candy. So that's 63 battles in optimal conditions. That's assuming you don't lose any of the 21 fights. Really just not worth the cost. And again, that's optimally. If you were to only get streaks of 7 and never actually get a perfect streak of 21, then I need to pull up Google to do some math quick. Right, so then you would need to get 16 streaks of 7 to be able to afford 1 rare candy, because each streak of 7 is 3. And again, this is assuming you don't get a streak of 21. This is assuming you lose after either 7 or 14 battles. So then that's 16 sets of 7, which is only 112 battles to get 1 rare candy. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Just 112 fights to get a single rare candy. And that's why we aren't using rare candy, because it's basically impossible to get en masse, especially when you don't have access to a good team, because you're using Route 1 Pokemon. Yep. I believe the rare candy is like the most expensive thing you can buy with BP. At least in Black and White. I believe in the sequels, they did not have the battle subway. Instead, they had like this stadium thing, which was a lot more fun and also more reasonable. and I believe they like lowered the prices a lot and it increased BP gains. But so yeah, Black and White, absolutely. Battle Subway sucks. And like, the thing is that it becomes somewhat easier to get things, to get BP, after beating the game, basically. Once you beat the Elite Four, and then defeat Team Plasma for the first time, before you go and challenge the Elite Four again to become champion, new subways will be unlocked in the Battle Subway. More advanced, more difficult, infinite versions of the existing Battle Subways with increasing gains. The thing is that to unlock these superior subways, first you need to beat Team Plasma. You need to beat N and Getsis. But then you also need to get a perfect 21 streak on the normal train. So like if you want to unlock the super singles train, then you need to get the full 21 streak on the normal singles train, which is kinda dumb, not gonna lie. I don't get why they did that. Just to give me access to capitalism 2.0. But they did that. And so that's how it is. And so rare candy is the only decent way to get rare candy is to just cheat it in. I guess, I mean, it's really Gen 5's version of the Battle Frontier, except it's not quite as good, I don't think. Like, it's not really as complex, it's just have battles in different formats. But yeah, it is meant to be like the Battle Frontier, basically, from previous games. Again, I do believe they did the whole thing much better in the Gen 5 sequels, Black 2, White 2. But alas, this is not the sequels. This is the originals. And so we are stuck, ramming our heads into a wall. I like how the music right now is currently so quiet that it just isn't being picked up by OBS most of the time. Just astounding. Yeah. I feel like every generation has its dumb features. Not even related to, like, the whole Battle Frontier thing. Like, Gen 1 doesn't really have... Like, every generation has its gimmick. Gen 1 kinda doesn't, because it's the first game. Until everything is just part of the game. But then, like, Gen 2, you have the day-night cycle, which is involved in both evolving Pokemon and finding Pokemon, catching Pokemon, etc. Gen 3, had, like, the bikes, where you had to keep switching between the two different bikes to be able to get places, which was kinda annoying, especially since you can't have both bikes on you at once. I don't remember that being the case. I don't remember being able to have both bikes on you. which means you have to keep going back to the same one city where you got the bike to be able to switch to the other bike to then be able to access areas, and it's kind of really dumb. Gen 4, I'm not entirely familiar with. I have heard, there's like the whole tree thing with like putting honey on trees to try and get Pokemon. I've also heard that there's, I believe Gen 4 like went crazy with HMs, and so there's like 1 billion HMs in Gen 4, and then there's also just terrain. That's apparently a thing. Gen 5 has the seasons. So like there's just parts of the game that you just can't access if it isn't the right season. Like Twist Mountain, where you can't get to the area where Substitute is unless it's winter. And if it is winter, then you can't get to a whole bunch of other places in Twist Mountain. It's just kind of dumb. And then the seasons, of course, affect like what Pokemon you can encounter. Which just makes the whole thing annoying. It's just like, let me catch the Pokemon without having to fucking calculate my latitude and longitude. Longitude? I think it's longitude. And then I'm not really familiar with Gen 6 onwards. The most I would be able to say is like Mega Evolutions, Z moves, Dynamax. But I don't feel like that's necessarily in the same vein as weather, day-night cycle, bikes. But then again, a gimmick is a gimmick. Real fun stuff. Fun stuff we're doing. Yes. Like I think I'd be fine with the bike thing if you could have both bikes like at once. Cause like then at least you don't have to go like 1,000 miles off to some other place just to get the right thing. But you can't, and so you have, every time you encounter some sort of alternate path that you can't take because you have the wrong bike, it means that you have to go like 1 billion miles away just to get a bike. Because you can fit one bike in your back pocket, but not two. Wait, sorry, have I not been using the lucky egg this entire time? Sorry, excuse me? Fuck. This entire past hour, I haven't been using the lucky egg. You've gotta be kidding me. No wonder this is taking forever. Man, that is an oversight on my part. Well, let's watch us just like jump straight to level 70 now that we have the lucky egg. Oh, that's still not a lot of XP. Never mind, even with the lucky egg, we aren't getting a whole lot of XP from Adenos. So it's still gonna be slow. Painfully so. Well, in the meantime, since I don't know what else to talk about, here's a Gen 1 fun fact, because the first generation of Pokemon games are super poorly coded, and so there's just a ton of glitches. It's possible to prevent a Ditto from ever being able to use Struggle. It's possible to lock a Ditto out of using Struggle in Generation 1. It is the most bizarre shit. And basically, how it works is, it has something to do with how the game calculates the power points for a certain move. For like just, not like a specific move, like specifically Flamethrower, but just like a move in general. But basically, if Ditto uses Transform to transform into a Pokemon that knows Mirror Move, and then that transformed Ditto immediately uses Mirror Move, it creates an empty move slot that has more than 0 power points. It creates a non-move that has power points. Which obviously, is not intended. But so basically, if that Ditto then runs out of power points for Transform, and then tries to use Struggle because it has no power points left for its moves, the game will say, no, you still have power points for something. I don't know what you have power points for, but you still have power points, and so you don't get to use Struggle. And the thing is that that non-move is permanent once that Ditto has it. There's no way to get rid of it. Meaning that that Ditto is permanently locked out of using Struggle. The only way to salvage that is to just reset the game. Just reload your last save. Hope that your last save was before you did the thing that locked the Ditto out of Struggle. And then, if a Pokemon, if that Ditto has 0 power points for Transform, and it has that non-move with power points, and then another Pokemon tries to use Disable on it, it'll crash the game, because Disable in Generation 1 has 2 conditions, basically. One is that the move has power points. It can't affect a move that is out of power points. So this Ditto, it only knows Transform. Transform is out of power points, it's at 0 PP. And so Disable can't affect that. But it tries to affect the non-move that has power points. But it can't disable that because it isn't a move. But Disable isn't going to fail because the Ditto has a move that has power points, and so Disable should be able to disable it. But there is no move there, so Disable can't disable it. So it's like, disable this move, but there's no move. But there's power points, but there's no move. But there's power points. And so it just gets stuck in that loop of just freaking out. And it just crashes. Gen 1, held together by duct tape. Yeah, and the most interesting thing about this, and also just the worst bit of it, is that this glitch was discovered in like the past year or two, so fairly recently. And it was discovered by a YouTuber, Pika Spray, who does Pokemon challenges and stuff. And he was doing a Ditto only run, and he accidentally locked himself out of using Struggle. And so he just wasn't able to use Struggle for the rest of the round, for the rest of the run. And so he just was stuck with Transform. Yeah, it's terrible. And he didn't even really understand, because, like, he discovered it. He didn't really understand the, how it worked. He just knew shit, I can't use struggle anymore for some reason, and people in the comments figured it out. Yeah. I believe that one was, very painful. Yeah, Gen 1's just like that. Just, things happen. Oh, Basket reached level 59 at some point. That's good. It means we'll eventually get to level 60. Oh. Oh, that's actually a lot closer than I thought. I really have not been paying attention to the game. I've just been talking about Ditto. But yeah. You want another fun fact about Gen 1? Because why not? What else am I gonna talk about while I'm doing this? Basket is finally the popular level, and so we can steal this item from him. But, oops. I should probably, like, slow the game down so I can actually function. But, wait, we want to give item lucky egg. So I'm sure you know of like the missing no glitch. Just that Pokemon that doesn't exist. The way it works, oh, okay. So yeah, I'll just continue about the missing no thing because why not? I've already started on this. So I'm sure people are familiar. Oh yeah, see ya, movie. In case I didn't already say that, I already forgot if I said see ya. I have the memory of like a goldfish. Sometimes. My short-term memory, terrible. My long-term memory, sometimes terrible. Okay. I will continue with the missing no thing then. So I'm sure like everyone knows the missing no glitch, the Pokemon that doesn't exist. The way it the way you do it is interesting, and the reason why it works is why it happens is interesting. Basically, to trigger the missing no glitch in the Generation 1 games, you go to the Safari Zone and then fly from inside the Safari Zone to Cinnabar Island. The thing is basically, that, like, towns normally don't have their own encounters, basically. I don't think, at least. Do take all this with a grain of salt. I'm no expert, and my memory, again, is not the absolute best, so this might be wrong. But basically, going to Cinnabar Island, specifically from the Safari Zone, basically causes you to be in Cinnabar Island with no encounters set, basically. Or maybe it's like with the Safari Zone counters. But so, then if you go to the right side of Cinnabar Island, there's just this one tile wide stretch of ocean that is part of Cinnabar Island, not the route next to it. And so basically what that means is that if you surf there, if you surf there, having come from the Safari Zone, not that route, then it'll mean that that little stretch of water will have, like, no proper encounters. And so then when you do encounter a Pokemon, it tries to figure out what you've encountered and just starts pulling out data from the wrong areas of the game, and you get missing no. The thing with the sprite, the reason why it has the sprite is really interesting. Basically, because of the technical limitations of the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, basically every Pokemon sprite is split up into tiles. The biggest the Pokemon sprite gets is like 7 by 7 tiles. The smallest is like 3 by 3, I think. And so when the game is like drawing the Pokemon sprite, it has to first say, okay, what's the height and width of the sprite? And the thing is, it asks the code separately what the height and width are, even though the height and width under normal circumstances will always be the same. Because the only sprite sizes are like 3 by 3, 4 by... I don't even know if it's like a 4 by 4, but 5 by 5, possibly 6 by 6, and then 7 by 7, I believe. You know what, I don't know if I'm the most trustworthy person to talk about this. Why don't I just pull up a YouTube video? Just pull up the original YouTube video where I got this from. One second. Okay. We are going to silence the music. The music is going bye-bye for now.
When it comes to video game
and then we want to add a browser source. Actually, no, we do not want a browser source. What we want is a window capture. One sec, just bear with me. We're doing this. We don't want this Moomy. We want this. But we don't want it to be that big. We'll sort of put it, like, down here, I think. Let me just... this size... I think that size is good. And if I, like... oh. Okay. Okay, so now that I have that set up, let's just test the audio.
When it comes to video game glitches, missing no from the first generation of Pokemon games comes to mind from its distinctive grainy texture. When it comes to video game glitches, missing no from the first
Okay, here we go.
generation of
We've got
Pokemon
some nice
games comes to mind for a lot of
video.
people. From its distinctive grainy texture to its iconic stair-step shape, it really embodies the feeling of glitchiness. But just how and why does Missing No look like this? For a placeholder literally named Missing Number, one might expect this Pokemon to show up as a solid square, a placeholder graphic, or maybe even not show up at all. In this video, we'll look at exactly how Pokemon are laid out and drawn onto the screen, uncovering the unintentional design of Missing No and other glitch Pokemon. The odd visual form of Missing No has to do with several errors that occur when decoding the Pokemon's sprite data and displaying it onto the screen. But before we tackle that, let's first look at how the sprite data is stored in the ROM in the first place. By knowing the format these graphics use, the whole process will be easier to understand. During a battle, a 56 by 56 pixel square area is designated as the area where the opponent Pokemon shows up. This area can be divided up into 49 8x8 tiles. The entire area is 7 tiles wide and 7 tiles tall. These tile graphics are stored in column order, that is, starting at the top left and going down. The graphics used here, and on the Game Boy in general, have a bit depth of 2 bits per pixel, which allows for 4 different colors. This means that each tile will take up 16 bytes in memory. Multiply that by the 49 total tiles, and you'll find that the buffer size that holds the Pokemon sprite data is 784 bytes large. This is how the sprite is displayed during a battle. However, keeping the data in this format in the ROM would just be wasteful. 784 bytes is a lot of space, especially for just a single sprite. Considering the fact that there are 151 Pokemon, this would mean over 100,000 bytes just for Pokemon front sprites. Then considering literally all of the other graphics in the game, that would be a crazy amount of data just for graphics alone. To save a lot of space very easily, the graphics data was compressed before inserted into the ROM. Then, when a sprite is loaded, the graphics are decompressed on the fly. For example, this Articuno sprite data is only 568 bytes when compressed in the ROM, before being decompressed into the 784 bytes in video RAM. The actual compression and decompression used in the game is fairly complicated, so I won't go into too much detail here, but there is one important thing that you'll need to know for later. As mentioned earlier, each pixel requires 2 bits to know what color to use. When loaded in video RAM, these 2 bits are near each other, and 2 bytes in video RAM represents 1 row of 8 pixels. But to make the compression more efficient, these 2 bits are stripped apart from one another. By separating these bits throughout the entire sprite, which is referred to as the bit plane, instead of 1 sprite at 2 bits per pixel, we get 2 sprites at 1 bit per pixel. These 2 sprites are then compressed and stored one after the other. This was what was done to large Pokemon sprites like this. However, a lot of Pokemon took much less than the allotted 56 by 56 area. Take Charmander, for example. There is a lot of empty space around its sprite. Even though this would probably compress really well, it is still a waste to include it within the sprite data, since there's nothing actually here. Therefore, this extra empty space around the edges was omitted before compressing the sprite data. More specifically, a bounding rectangle was placed around the sprite to include as few empty tiles as possible. In practice, only 5x5, 6x6, and 7x7 bounding boxes were used, but as we'll see later, the algorithm that deals with this can support all the way to a 1x1 sprite, as well as rectangular bounding boxes. The sprite data is still stored in order from top to bottom, left to right. Then, 1 additional byte is used to tell how large the bounding box was. The upper 4 bits held the box's height in tiles, while the lower 4 bits held its width. This byte was copied into 2 separate locations. It was bundled with the compressed graphics data to help the decompression algorithm piece together the sprite correctly, and it was located in a separate table for the algorithm that reinserts these blank tiles to get a hold of. Now, let's look at the algorithms that were used to convert this compressed data back into a viewable sprite image. In order to manipulate the data correctly, a buffer of 1,176 bytes was used, which is enough space to hold 3 56 by 56 pixel sized sprites, or 147 8x8 tiles at 1 bit per pixel. This buffer was split into 3 equally sized portions, which were 392 bytes each. I'll refer to them as buffers A, B, and C. In this view here, I'll display the data in column order at 1 bit per pixel. This makes it easier to see what exactly is going on. And over here, I'll show the data in row order at 2 bits per pixel, which is more likely what you would see if you were using a memory viewer. You can tell from how messy this looks that it is important to interpret the graphics data at the correct bit depth. First, the 16-bit pointer to the compressed graphics data was loaded from the Pokemon statistics table, and the single byte that holds the bounding box size was reserved. Then, the 2 bit planes were decompressed into buffers B and C. The method here involves several steps, but it's pretty complex and out of the scope of this video, so we'll just skip to the part where the graphics data is decompressed and in the correct format here. Note that the entire buffer may not be used, particularly if the sprite we're dealing with is smaller than 56 by 56 pixels. If it is 56 by 56, then the entire buffer is filled. The data should, however, be the exact same size in each of the buffers, since these bit planes are 2 halves of the same sprite. Now the data has been decompressed, but the empty tiles outside of the sprite's bounding box haven't been inserted yet. For example, if we were to merge the bit planes and move the tiles into video RAM as they are now, it would be a mess, since none of these empty tiles around the edges exist yet. To account for this, a simple routine is used to piece together the correct version of the sprite given the graphics data and the bounding box size. Here is a basic outline of what the routine does. Step 1. Initialize all of buffer A into all zeros so the entire bit plane is blank. Step 2. Calculate the offset of the top left corner of the sprite. We'll come back to this in a bit. This step will give us a pointer to memory within buffer A where the graphics data should be copied to. Step 3. Copy over one column of tiles. The number of bytes transferred will be 8 times the height of the sprite's bounding box, since each tile takes up 8 bytes here. Step 4. Revert the pointer back to what it was before copying over this column, then increment it by 56 bytes. This effectively sets up the pointer to be at the top of the next column. And step 5. Repeat steps 3 and 4 for each column remaining in the sprite. These steps will run a number of times equal to the width of the sprite's bounding box. After this subroutine finishes, the Pokemon sprite will be properly positioned within the allotted 56 by 56 pixel area. Or at least one of the bit planes will be. The same subroutine is run again on the data within buffer C, but it copies into buffer B. So after all of this, buffer A contains the first bit plane, and buffer B contains the second bit plane. To finish building the sprite, the two bit planes are zippered together to match the graphics format that the Game Boy requires so it can actually display the sprite correctly. The data in buffers A and B are copied into buffers C and B starting from the end and working backwards. This sprite takes up 2 buffers since the number of bits representing each pixel has doubled from 1 to 2. And finally, the 784 bytes of buffers B and C are transferred into video RAM to be displayed on the screen. Okay, let's revisit that one step that I skipped over, finding the top left corner of the bounding box of the sprite within the 56 by 56 pixel area. First, I'll mark off each 8x8 tile's index number in this area in order of how they are stored in memory. The goal is to fit a smaller box of graphics into this larger box and find the tile index number of its top left corner. The smaller box should always rest on the bottom of the larger box, and it should also be centered horizontally. We can find the index of the top left corner by finding the horizontal offset and the vertical offset of the smaller box in tiles. Then, if we multiply the horizontal offset by 7 and add the vertical offset, that will give us the tile offset we want. For example, if the smaller box were 5 by 5, we would want it to show up here. It has a horizontal offset of 1 and a vertical offset of 2. 7 times 1 plus 2 is 9, which is exactly the index of its top left corner. First, the vertical offset. This one is actually pretty easy. It is just 7 minus the height of the bounding box. We can double check this by seeing that a 7 by 7 sprite should have an offset of 0, and that our 5 by 5 sprite had an offset of 2. The horizontal offset is a bit trickier. The formula for this offset is 7 minus the width of the bounding box, all divided by 2 plus 1/2, and rounded down to the nearest whole number. Again, we can double check by seeing that a 7 by 7 sprite should have an offset of 0, and that the 5 by 5 sprite had an offset of 1. The plus 1/2 part ensures that even-numbered width sprites, which can't be centered exactly, will favor the right side of the allotted area instead of the left. Now that we have the horizontal and vertical offsets, the index number of the top left corner can be calculated. However, the algorithm that inserts the empty tiles deals with bytes of graphics data, not whole tiles. At this point in time, the graphics are in 1 bit per pixel format, so one tile takes up 8 bytes. This means to convert a tile index into a byte index, we multiply it by 8. This may have seemed like a lot of pedantic mathematics, but it really is important to uncover the mysterious shape that Missing No takes. Before moving on to Missing No, let's look at a few more examples so you can see this algorithm in action. First, a 7 by 7 sprite. The data is decompressed and decoded into buffers B and C. Now, without the need for any spacing, these already look pretty good. The horizontal and vertical offsets are both 0, making the tile offset and pointer 0, but the data is copied into buffers A and B anyway, since the same code is run for all sprites regardless of their size. Then the two 1-bit per pixel images are merged into a single 2 bits per pixel image. This data is what gets written into video RAM. Next, a 6x6 sprite. The data is decompressed and decoded into buffers B and C. This time, everything looks jumbled since the empty area needs to be re-added. The horizontal offset turns out to be 1, and so does the vertical offset, which means the tile offset is 8 and the pointer is at 64 bytes into the buffer. The empty area gets added to the first bit plane when it is copied from buffer B to A, then it's added to the second bit plane when it's copied from buffer C to B. Now that the sprite is centered correctly, the images are merged, then sent to video RAM. And finally, since we saw a 5x5 sprite earlier, let's do a 3x2 sprite just for fun. A sprite this small and non-square is never actually used in the game, but the algorithm here can handle it just fine. The first and second bit planes are decompressed into buffers B and C, and the data is decoded. You can tell the sprite is much smaller because much less of these buffers are written to at this step. The horizontal offset is found to be 2, and the vertical offset is 5, resulting in the top left corner tile having index 19, and the pointer becomes 152. Then, the 6 tiles of the sprite are arranged as you would expect. The same is done for the second bit plane, and then the two are merged just as before. And then, of course, these final tiles are transferred to video RAM like usual. Alright, finally we can look into what makes Missing No look the way it does. Remember, the only two things required to draw a Pokemon sprite is a pointer to compressed graphics data and 1 byte that describes the width and height of the sprite's bounding box. With Missing No and other glitch Pokemon, these two parameters are corrupted. So while the pointer is supposed to point to compressed graphics data, in most cases it doesn't, and it points to somewhere completely unrelated. This is what gives Missing No its glitchy texture. And then the size of the bounding box is corrupted as well. The algorithm that inserts empty space around the bounding box only works correctly for widths and heights between 1 and 7 inclusive. If a 0 or an 8 through 15 were to show up, the padding around the bounding box won't be applied correctly. In fact, if a Pokemon's bounding box is specified to have a width of 0, the algorithm completely fails and crashes.
Realized about this.
Furthermore, the two copies of Missing No's sprite width and height are different, which makes things a little bit inconsistent. Let's step through the entire process again, but using Missing No's data as the example. The pointer to Missing No's supposed compressed graphics data is hex 1900, which happens to point in the middle of some code responsible for writing tilemap data to the screen, including most of that which draws text boxes and dialogue. But that doesn't really matter here, because right now it will be treated as graphics data. The first problem that arises with loading Missing No's data is decompressing this junk data. The buffers that hold each of the bit planes are only 392 bytes big. However, Missing No's decompressed graphics data ends up being much more than 392 bytes. The dimension byte bundled with the compressed data is hex DD, which corresponds to a width and height of 13 tiles. So instead of writing a maximum of 49 8x8 tiles, 169 tiles get written instead. Of course, this means that these decompression buffers are indexed way out of bounds, and everything in memory after them gets clobbered. This just so happens to be where the Hall of Fame data is stored, which is why it gets corrupted just from encountering a Missing No or other glitch Pokemon. The algorithm continues to chug along anyway, and eventually these graphics are decompressed into buffers B and C after processing over 3 times as much data as intended. This is the reason why the game seems to load for much longer than normal when encountering Missing No. After it finally wraps up, we are left with data that looks like this. Now we insert the proper amount of empty space around the sprite's bounding box. And here's the second problem that arises. Missing No's bounding box is found to be 8x8 tiles, since this byte is garbage also. Well, let's plug in a width of 8 tiles and a height of 8 tiles into those formulas and see what happens. The horizontal offset is found to be 0, which is all fine and dandy, but the vertical offset is calculated to be -1. Therefore, the tile index of the top left corner is -1, multiply by 8 to get the graphics data offset, and we get -8. Now, this offset is calculated inside of an 8-bit register. -8 is represented as 1111 1000 in binary. However, when working with offsets like this, a negative number doesn't make much sense, so this 8-bit value is treated as an unsigned number instead of a signed number. As an unsigned number, this value is hex F8, or decimal 248. If we divide this value by 8, we can get the true tile index, which is 31. It's a pretty unintuitive result, but this places the supposed top left corner way over here. Now, 8 columns of 8 tiles are copied over one at a time. Notice how the last tile of the column is overwritten by the subsequent column, since advancing to the next column is only an increase of 7 tiles when there are supposed to be 8 tiles in one column. And by the third column, the buffer is again indexed out of bounds and starts running into the same buffer that this data is coming from. The same thing happens for the second bit plane, just as you would expect. Finally, the 2 bit planes are merged into a single 4-color sprite as normal. And there you have it. Missing No's shape and texture are both results of unintended parameters that come from a corrupted Pokédex number. Speaking of Pokédex number, let's look into why Missing No exists in the first place, which will lead us into other glitch Pokémon. Each Pokémon has an internal ID number and a Pokédex number. For example, Bulbasaur has Pokédex number 1, but Rhydon has the internal ID number of 1. The Pokédex number and name of a Pokémon are derived via the internal ID, so technically more than one Pokémon can have the same Pokédex number. The internal ID number is the only truly unique identifier between Pokémon species. Now, throughout this list of Pokémon ordered by internal ID, you will notice a bunch of them have Pokédex number 0. These IDs probably belonged to Pokémon that were removed from the game during development. Rather than shifting all of the IDs over when removing a Pokémon, they just left a gap and filled it with a 0. This is also where the placeholder name of Missing Number came from, since the Pokédex number for the cut Pokémon went missing. Now, while a Pokémon's name is derived by its internal ID, its sprite is derived by its Pokédex number. All of these gaps were filled with placeholder zeros, and the Pokemon name list is more of the same, where you can find the string Missing No many times. But the reason that all Missing No look the same is strictly because they all share the same Pokédex number, 0. Oddly, the glitch Pokemon with internal ID 0, ''M, happens to also have Pokédex number 0, just by chance, which is why it looks the same as Missing No. As we look through all of these glitched Pokemon sprites, you'll see some of them have been marked with red. These are tiles that change their appearance depending on what is in memory at the time the sprite is loaded. See, the 16-bit pointer to compressed graphics data normally points to a ROM address, since that is where the data is supposed to be located. However, some of the glitch Pokemon have pointers that refer to other regions of the address space, such as work RAM, SRAM, or video RAM. These will look different almost every time they are loaded. The same goes for many of the glitched Pokemon's names. The area of video RAM where the alphabet is stored is near the area where other currently loaded graphics are, such as the back of your own Pokemon and the front sprite itself. In fact, some glitch Pokemon, like ''M, have parts of its own sprite within its name, which I think is just wonderful. Loading up a Pokemon's sprite in its status screen will even allow tiles from the currently loaded tile set to appear in certain glitched names. This video is getting pretty long, so I'll end it here for now. In a follow-up video, I will try to fix some of these glitched sprites.
Yeah, Missing No lore. It's really interesting stuff. If you like that sort of stuff, check out Retro Game Mechanics on YouTube. Retro Game Mechanics Explained. He does videos on this sort of stuff. It's really interesting. Anyways, hey real life brothers, welcome to the very exciting stream of sometimes watching YouTube while grinding. super interesting, almost as interesting as Missing No, and how Missing No it works. Absolutely riveting. Yeah. Just kind of doing this. I might just throw on another YouTube video. Yes, a lot. Gotta get them ready for the Elite Four. Cause the last time, I got my ass beat. Got it beat very hard. Even by, like, Caitlyn, who we have a bit of a type advantage against. You know, Dark, Psychic. Cause, like, the pups know, Crunch. So you would think they'd be able to, do well against, the Psychic type gym leader. But no. That's too much to ask for. It's super fun. Yeah. But then again, that was when these four were all at level 45. Pep and Pap still need to get to a higher level. I haven't done any grinding with them yet. But as soon as Screwball is up a level, then we're on to the OGs, the originals. In the meantime, I'm probably gonna throw up another YouTube video. Because, like, I can only say so much when just grinding Pokemon. Yeah. Just being able to listen to a YouTube video makes things more bearable. Uh, let's see. Which one? Which one should I pull up? I feel like there was something to do with, like, aha! There it is. This one might be interesting. Let's just pop this on.
If you've played Super Mario Bros. 3...
1 second. What was that? Moving from, Pokemon to Mario.
If you've played Super Mario Bros. 3 anytime within the last couple decades, you've probably noticed that the right side of the screen looks a bit odd. Why is this? And why do other games like Super Mario Bros. 1 and 2 not have this issue?
Wait, 1 second. We're going to lower the quality of this because 1, you're seeing it really low, and 2, it is not helping me, play the game. Yes, it's super interesting.
The NES's picture processing unit has room for 4 name tables arranged in a square. A name table is a 256 by 240 pixel area full of 8 by 8 pixel tiles. Now, unless the cartridge has extra memory built into it, the NES only has enough video RAM to store data for 2 name tables. So usually, in order to fill in the other 2, the first 2 are mirrored to the second 2. That is, they are identical. They can be mirrored in a vertical or horizontal manner depending on the type of scrolling that will be going on. Scrolling is defined as changing the position of the background relative to the screen. All 4 name tables can be seen on the screen by scrolling the background in a certain direction. In order to create the illusion that the world is larger than 512 pixels horizontally or 480 pixels vertically, the name tables need to be updated with new data. Usually this is done at a point where the name table is not visible on the screen. In Super Mario Bros., this vertical seam is created about 128 pixels in front of the camera. And in Super Mario Bros. 2, the seam for both horizontal and vertical levels is about 32 pixels in front of the camera. You can see how, in horizontal levels, vertical mirroring is used, and in vertical levels, horizontal mirroring is used. If it were the opposite, there'd be no room to fit the seam where it can't be seen on the screen. Now, both of these games can only scroll horizontally or vertically, but not both simultaneously. Games such as Metroid can scroll in both directions, but still not at the same time. This is done by rearranging the name tables and switching the mirroring type on the fly. Enter Super Mario Bros. 3. In this game, the camera can scroll both vertically and horizontally at the same time. This is the sole reason why the edge of the screen is quite glitchy. In order to have vertical scrolling, horizontal mirroring is used, just like in the Super Mario Bros. 2 example. Horizontal levels that allow free scrolling are limited in height, so a horizontal seam is not needed since the entire vertical span of the level can fit on the two name tables. But the levels are not limited in width, so a vertical seam will be located where the name tables are updated. And since the screen will be showing all of the horizontal span of the name tables, the seam is going to be visible on screen somewhere near the edges. The screen is 256 pixels wide, so we will see at least 32 8x8 tiles in one horizontal row. If the background is scrolled in such a way that an 8x8 tile is partially cut off on one side, then really 33 tiles are being seen. And while using horizontal mirroring, these two tiles on the edges will actually be the same tile. So unless the background is perfectly lined up at an 8x8 tile boundary, there will always be some incorrect tiles shown on the screen. But fear not, there's a masking feature in the PPU that allows the leftmost 8 pixels to be masked away, so this anomaly is not shown on screen. Or at least it's supposed to be. Super Mario Bros. 3 doesn't do a very good job of actually hiding the seam, as you can still see it if you look hard enough. Another game with this type of scrolling, Kirby's Adventure, does a much better job at hiding this seam. However, both games still have another problem that can't easily be fixed without a lot of resources or code. While a name table can hold 32 by 30 8x8 pixel tiles, the attributes for these tiles, namely the palette, only apply to each 2x2 block of tiles. Basically, each 16 by 16 pixel block has to be the same color. This is an issue when the background is scrolled in such a way that a block is split by the seam. When viewed like this, the leftmost 8x8 tile and the rightmost 8x8 tile must use the same palette. Now normally in gameplay, each 16 by 16 block is designed to use the same palette because of this restriction, but this isn't the case when the block is split by the loading seam. This is the reason for the ugly colors at the edges of the screen. If you look closely enough, you can tell that there's a pattern to the miscolored tiles. They always take on the color of the tile that just disappeared off the other side of the screen. The solution to this problem is to mask out 16 pixels instead of 8 on the edges, but there's no easy way to do this. The masking feature only allows for masking out an 8 pixel band on the left side of the screen. One way of accomplishing this is to use up a bunch of objects to cover up the right side of the screen. But this limits the number of objects per scanline from 8 to 7, and additionally, this would require using up to 15 out of the 64 object slots in OAM. Because of this, most games just decided not to bother fixing it, since the edge of the screen was likely to be cut off by the television's overscan anyway. Thank you for watching. Retro Game Mechanics Explained has a Discord server. Here, you can ask questions and talk about various video game stuff.
Retro Game Mechanics Explained is a super cool channel. Good to watch when you're doing nothing, like we are here. We are genuinely going to get nothing done this stream, other than level up Pokemon. But yeah, let me add that again. Let me just grab a link to the channel. Dude, I'm just gonna... Oh, now I have to see my own chat rules. Yeah, raising baby Pokemon, raising just Pokemon, can be annoying. I suppose, while we're here, since I'm maybe talking more, we'll just pop music back on. Yeah. And there's no even there's not even any guarantee that this will be good enough. It'd be nice to get like a lot of rare candies, but there's no good way of doing that in Pokemon Black and White. I believe it's slightly easier in the sequels, but for now our only option is to just do this. Just do this. Fuck. Just this. Oh hey, look at that. Yep, just... Speed is good until you just fly all over the place and you just can't control yourself. Normally when I use speed up, I just do this, because with the bike it's just too much. Ooh, the Village Bridge theme. This is the Village Bridge theme, right? I believe it is. Yeah, this is definitely it. Yeah, don't worry, it'll only be like another hour until Scrooble is high enough level, and then Pep and Pap still need to be leveled. I sort of want to just throw on another YouTube video, but like, it's my stream, not the, like I should be actually doing things. But like, then again, who really cares? It's not like I'm doing much of anything, I'm just sitting here, grinding up. Yes. You know what? Yeah, fuck it. We're throwing up another retro game mechanics video because fuck it, they're cool. Let's see, what's a good video? As always, this one.
There are 3 major glitches in Super Mario World that are used.
1 second, dude. And then Super Mario World this time. Window capture on. Dude.
There are 3 major glitches in Super Mario World that are used in speedruns to complete levels quicker. They are creating Yoshi wings, spawning an invisible Koopa Kid boss, and collecting a question mark orb in the inventory. Each of these glitches allow the player to end a level prematurely, and they all work in their own way. Yoshi can grow wings by holding a blue shell in his mouth, but there are a few blocks in the game that contain special wings that warp Mario and Yoshi to a bonus room and finish the level. There are only 3 of these blocks in the game, but using block duplication, they can be created in many other different levels. Block duplication is a glitch that occurs due to a discrepancy between which tile is hit by an item and which tile should have been activated. When a tile is activated, it is deleted, and a sprite version of the block is created in its place. This is responsible for the bumping animation and spawning the item that is contained within the block. Then, when it returns to its neutral position, it is removed and another tile is put in its place, usually a brown block. When the tile that is collided with and the tile that is activated are different, this results in the block being duplicated, since the original is never deleted. Most sprites in the game have a position that determines its location and a clipping box that determines its collision with tiles like ground and blocks. This clipping box can be offset from the sprite's position. We'll show this with a red box. The green dot marks the sprite's actual position. From a programming oversight, The coordinate that is used to determine which tile will be activated is a combination of the sprite's position and its clipping box. The y-coordinate is strictly the sprite's y position, but the x-coordinate is the horizontal center of the sprite's clipping box. In this example, which is used by most carryable items, the resulting coordinate, marked with the blue dot, is actually hovering above the sprite's clipping box. If this coordinate is not inside the bounds of the tile that triggered the collision, the block will be duplicated to the tile where the coordinate is located. In the horizontal case, sprites that are located inside of a solid tile are ejected outwards so they don't become stuck. This can cause the detection coordinate to slip outside of the tile bounds before the block activation is handled. In the vertical case, if the collision is high enough in the tile, the clipping box can be inside the tile, but the detection coordinate can be above the tile. This can be done easily by throwing an item upwards inside of a block to get the block to duplicate upwards. Both of these events can occur simultaneously, which will cause the block to duplicate diagonally upwards and to the side. This might seem pretty pointless for the Yoshi Wings block, since having more than one in a level isn't very useful at all. However, in order to decrease the number of unique objects in the game, certain question blocks in Super Mario World contain different items depending on their location in the level, more specifically their X position. There are 4 such blocks in the game: a turn block with a chain star, 1-up, or vine, a turn block with a blue or gray P-switch, a note block with a fire flower, feather, or star, and a question block with a key, Yoshi Wings, P-balloon, or Koopa shell. Duplicating any of these blocks horizontally will produce the item previous or next in the series. For example, duplicating a vine block to the left will produce a 1-up mushroom, and duplicating a note block with a star to the right will produce a fire flower. Most importantly for us is that duplicating a key block to the right will produce Yoshi Wings, and duplicating a P-balloon block to the left will also produce wings. This can be used in 6 extra levels, bringing the total up to 9, although really it's 8, since the P-balloon in Donut Secret 2 is in a sub-level, which breaks the wings transition, so the level becomes unbeatable. It doesn't stop there. Let's talk about Dragon Coins. Dragon Coins are the big collectible coins that take up 2 tiles. If Mario touches one half of the coin, the other side will be deleted as well. The Dragon Coin tile IDs are 002D and 002E for the top and bottom respectively. To delete the tiles when Mario touches them, the lower byte is changed to 25, resulting in 0025, which is a completely blank tile. The upper byte is never actually changed. It makes sense, since the upper byte is already 0, why bother rewriting 0 again? We can exploit this property by duplicating a block with an ID of 100 or higher on top of one of the halves of the coin and collecting the other half. This will result in a tile with an ID of 125 being created instead, which just so happens to be the question block with the key, wings, P-balloon, and shell. The block is invisible at first, since a blank tile was expected to be created instead, but if the tile is reloaded by moving it off screen, it will show its true form. This block can then be activated or duplicated itself to create the Yoshi Wings we're after. Using this technique, another 20 levels can be finished via Yoshi Wings. Only a few of them are actually faster than completing the level normally while being simple to execute, like Vanilla Dome 1 for example. Some of them require duplicating tons of blocks across the entire level, like in Yoshi's Island 1. And a few of them are incredibly difficult to pull off, even with emulator tools, like Butterbridge 1. Here's a tool-assisted movie recorded by Bruno Visnati that abuses Mario's cape flight mechanics to duplicate a bunch of multi-coin blocks over the Dragon Coin in mid-air. Sprite number 29 is the Koopaling sprite. It actually handles all 7 different Koopalings. Similarly to the blocks with different items, it initializes a different boss depending on the Y position of the sprite. Starting from y coordinate 0 and increasing, it handles Morton, Roy, Ludwig, Iggy, Larry, Lemmy, and Wendy Koopa. By utilizing a couple of glitches, this sprite can be spawned arbitrarily, skipping the initialization process. What remains is an invisible, glitchy boss sprite that can be killed with fireballs to end the level prematurely. Before describing what is going on, we need to know how Super Mario World handles which enemies are currently loaded. It does this by allocating memory for up to 12 sprites to be loaded simultaneously. When a new sprite needs to be loaded into memory, an empty slot is searched for, and if one is found, all of the sprite's properties will be loaded into that slot. Conventionally, the slots are numbered from 0 to 11, or 0 to B in hexadecimal. Here you can see each sprite labeled with its slot number. When an enemy is grabbed with Yoshi, its slot number is stored with Yoshi's data to tell that it is currently on Yoshi's tongue or in his mouth. Additionally, the licked sprite will set a flag of its own for the same purpose. Then, when Yoshi swallows or spits the sprite out, Yoshi's data is replaced with -1 to denote that nothing is attached to his tongue anymore. There is one instance where this value is not updated with -1, and that is when an enemy is dropped off of Yoshi's tongue by taking damage while licking it up. This results in carryable sprites retaining some weird properties. For example, Koopa shells will just fall through the ground when kicked. The next time Yoshi sticks out his tongue, this sprite slot reference is updated correctly with -1 until another sprite is caught on his tongue. Because of this, there's no inconsistency and the link between Yoshi and the sprite attached to him isn't broken completely. There is, however, a way to completely destroy this link between the two, and that is to use the double tongue glitch. When the player presses X or Y to stick out Yoshi's tongue, Mario's animation timer is set to 18 and decrements once every frame of active execution. When this value is 18, Mario pulls his hand back. At 16, Yoshi's animation timer is set to 6. At 12, Mario hits Yoshi in the back of the head. And at 0, he pulls his hand back. Yoshi's animation timer is used to show the face he makes in anticipation of Mario smacking him in the head. It decrements once every single frame. Under continuously active execution, this is a flawless system. The problem is that there are events in the game that pause execution of certain elements without actually pausing the entire game. The best example of this is when Mario grabs a power-up that changes his appearance. Mario's animation timer in particular does not decrement during the period that the game is frozen, but Yoshi's does. If Mario's animation timer happens to be 16 when this pause occurs, Yoshi's animation timer will be set to 6 every single frame until the game unpauses. This anomaly will cause Yoshi to stick his tongue out twice in a row, even though the player only pressed the button once. This happens even if Yoshi can't swallow something he picked up with the first tongue. For example, if a shell is grabbed with the first tongue, the second tongue will still appear even though Yoshi's mouth is full. This resets the sprite slot that Yoshi has on his tongue back to -1, and now he has a null sprite in his mouth. If you combine this glitch with eat canceling, the end result is being able to have a sprite in Yoshi's mouth and not in Yoshi's mouth at the same time. The link between the two has been broken. The sprite can be spat out as if it were still in his mouth, and it can be killed as if it weren't in his mouth. In fact, if you kill the sprite in his mouth, the sprite slot is still considered to be in Yoshi's mouth. This means another sprite can spawn in that slot and enter the same limbo state as the original sprite. The last thing to know about before piecing together the boss kill trick is how sprites utilize what is called their stun timer. The stun timer is a generic timer that any sprite can use for any purpose. It will be decremented automatically once every 1 or 2 frames. The name stun timer comes from its most common usage. It dictates how long a Koopa will remain stunned inside its shell before it jumps out. In fact, this is the default action for any sprite when it is carryable. When a sprite that is carryable runs out its stun timer, another sprite is spawned from it. In this case, a shellless Koopa is spawned from a shell. Koopas are the only sprites that use this feature in practice. Other carryable sprites that have non-zero stun timers, like Goombas and Buzzy Beetles, override this mechanic just so they can wake up instead. Any other sprite that can be carryable and have its stun timer set to something non-zero will spawn a different sprite from it. For example, P-switches are normally carryable, and their stun timer is set when Mario steps on them to determine how long until they despawn. By using Yoshi to eat the P-switch before it actually despawns, the P-switch will remain unflattened with its stun timer set. The sprite that spawns is determined by a table indexed out of bounds. The only intended values are the 4 different colored shellless Koopas. So there are 3 requirements to get a sprite to spawn from another. 1. It can't be one of these sprites. 2. It must have its stun timer set. And 3. It must be carryable. Number 1 is easy to satisfy, but how about the other 2? For number 2, we can utilize another use of the stun timer. It turns out that this timer is also used to determine how long the puff of smoke will persist after killing an enemy with a spin jump or with Yoshi. The problem with this method is that the slot is still considered occupied until the puff of smoke is completely gone and the timer is 0. Using the double tongue glitch, we can get around this restriction, as you'll see in a little bit. And then for number 3, we can use Yoshi to force sprites to be carryable, even if they weren't meant to be. Any sprite that comes out of Yoshi's mouth can be put into either the carryable state or the kicked state by spitting it out while ducking or standing respectively. For example, here is a glitch that you may have done yourself on accident. When all of the sprite slots are full, the gold tape sprite will force itself into an occupied slot no matter what. If the sprite it overrides happens to be the sprite in Yoshi's mouth, the gold tape itself will be put into Yoshi's mouth automatically. Then, the sprite can be put into kicked or carryable state by spitting it out. The sprite graphic looks pretty glitchy since it was never intended to be in either one of these states. If we did this glitch while also setting its stun timer, we would get a sprite to spawn just like the P-switch in the Cheep Cheep. In this case, the gold tape spawns a red Paracoopa. Combining these 3 glitches, double tongue, broken Yoshi tongue link, and unintended stun spawning, a Koopaling boss sprite can be spawned by stunning a sliding blue Koopa. Take note that in this example, the sliding blue Koopa will be spawning into slot number 9, so we'll aim to unlink Yoshi's tongue and have it persist with slot 9. The first step is to trigger the double tongue glitch. We'll do this by dropping this fire flower from the item box and sticking out Yoshi's tongue as we touch it. To break the link regarding Yoshi's tongue, a non-swallowable sprite needs to be grabbed with the first tongue. The first Koopa shell will work perfectly. By flicking it up into the air like this, it makes it easier to grab after jumping into the fire flower. The second tongue then needs to touch a sprite that is in slot 9 so that that slot is considered to be in Yoshi's mouth. In this setup, the blue Koopa happens to be in slot 9, so the second tongue needs to reach over the red Koopa and grab the blue Koopa. Then, to cancel this tongue grab, we run into the red Koopa that is in front of Mario, so the blue Koopa falls off Yoshi's tongue. At this point, the blue Koopa is in that limbo state and is both in and not in Yoshi's mouth. We can spit it out remotely, or we can kill the Koopa by stomping on it. Now, there is nothing on screen that is in slot 9, but Yoshi still has it in his mouth. If we spit out whatever is in Yoshi's mouth now, the blue Koopa would be revived, or his shell would at least. Instead of doing that, let's go back left and respawn the sliding blue Koopa. It spawns into slot 9, so now it is the sprite in limbo. Just like the gold tape example, we can spit it out into kicked or carryable states and make a glitchy mess. However, in order to spawn the unintended sprite, the Koopa's stun timer has to be set before spitting it out. We can do that by stomping on him first, creating a white puff of smoke, which sets the stun timer for this slot. See, using the smoke puff works in this case, since the sprite being killed and the sprite coming out of Yoshi's mouth are in the same slot, thanks to the broken link. This makes the double tongue glitch a very easy way to stun a lot of sprites that were never intended to be stunned in the first place. Now, the Koopaling sprite is invisible since it was not initialized correctly, but it functions similarly to Morton, Ludwig, and Roy Koopa. Jumping on it once will make it teleport way off screen, so the best way to defeat it is to shoot it with 12 fireballs. This will trigger the boss defeated fanfare and the level will be completed. This trick can be used in any level with a blue sliding Koopa. This includes Yoshi's Island 1, Groovy, and Cookie Mountain. And by using the unintended stunned sprite spawning, a sliding blue Koopa can be spawned in other levels, and then stunned itself to spawn the Koopaling. Here is a tool-assisted movie recorded by Master June that does just that in Valley of Bowser 4. There is a special sprite at the end of the sunken ghost ship, and that is the green question orb. Touching it will end the level immediately. It is possible to insert one of these orbs into the inventory box using an item swap glitch, and then releasing it anywhere you want to end that level prematurely. In this context, a power-up is defined to be a sprite that triggers the subroutine that attempts to modify Mario's state. The only intended power-ups were mushrooms, fire flowers, cape feathers, superstars, and 1-ups. However, there are additional sprites that trigger this routine that aren't traditionally considered power-ups. These are the invisible solid sprite found at the ending of Switch Palaces and all of the Charge and Chucks. But why does it matter if these are technically power-ups if they don't change Mario's state when you touch them, and you can't even eat them with Yoshi? The answer is that it is possible for Yoshi to eat both of these sprites, or rather any sprite, by performing an item swap. When talking about the boss kill, we saw what happened when an enemy was knocked off of Yoshi's tongue by taking damage during the action. In this instance, we'll see what happens when a sprite is completely removed from Yoshi's tongue before he can swallow it. The easiest way to show this is by eating a moving coin and collecting it quickly. However, this glitch can be performed in any way that despawns the sprite, such as moving it far enough off screen. Let's look in slow motion. First, the coin is latched to Yoshi's tongue. The two-way link mentioned earlier is established at this point. When the coin is collected by Mario, it is deleted, and now it looks like there is nothing on Yoshi's tongue anymore. However, the link is not broken until Yoshi swallows something, so the link still exists. Even though the coin doesn't exist anymore, that sprite slot is still attached to Yoshi's tongue. It's a different sort of limbo state where a sprite can still exist and not exist at the same time. The difference here is that the sprite is on Yoshi's tongue instead of in his mouth. You can see this in action when Yoshi finally retracts his tongue all of the way, and the coin is eaten again even though it doesn't exist anymore. Since the sprite slot that had the coin in it was empty, it just took on the attributes of whatever was in that slot last, which was the coin. So in this way, sprites that get deleted when Mario touches them can be duplicated, since their effects are activated when Mario touches them and when Yoshi eats them. The item swap occurs when another sprite spawns during the period of time when the sprite slot on Yoshi's tongue is empty. Since the link between the item and Yoshi's tongue is still active at this point, any sprite that spawns into that particular slot will automatically warp onto Yoshi's tongue. This applies to pretty much all normal sprites, which means Yoshi can eat pretty much everything. Most sprites will only give Mario a single coin when they are swallowed, with the exception of power-ups, which will update Mario with the appropriate state. And this brings us back to the Charge and Chuck. Since these guys are technically power-ups, they will invoke the routine that updates Mario's state when consumed. The first thing this routine does is determine the current status combination for this execution instance, since the results depend on both Mario's current power-up status and the power-up that was collected. There are 4 possible states for Mario's power-up status and 5 intentional power-ups. This comes out to 20 different combinations of the two. The routine is broken into 2 parts, updating Mario's power-up status and updating the item box contents. Each part contains a table that is 20 entries long that determines what action to take or what item to give in the item box. For updating Mario's power-up status, these values are treated as indices into a table of pointers to subroutines that give the appropriate power-up and set up the appropriate animation. A value that isn't less than 6 will result in a broken pointer that will most likely crash the game if taken. For example, if the index into the original table is 20, which exceeds the length of the table by 1, the pointer index will be 38, which results in a pointer to address 1088, which does not contain game code. For the second part of the routine, the value in the second table is treated as the item ID that goes into the item box. The 20 entries of the table only include 0, 1, 2, and 4 for no item, mushroom, fireflower, and feather respectively. Again, if this table is indexed out of bounds, a junk value will be read, and a completely unrelated sprite will be put in the item box. For example, if the index into the original table is 40, the value read will be hex 38, which results in a rex being placed in the item box. Now, since charge and chucks aren't taken into account in the status combination check, they will result in an errant index. There are 8 different kinds of chucks and 4 different Mario power-up statuses, so this results in 32 extra indices that can be created that will exceed the bounds of the table, 116 through 147. It turns out that an index of 135 will result in the green question sphere being put in the item box, and the subroutine located at address 95C6 will be executed. This points to the middle of a routine that deals with sprite-object interaction, but it is able to return safely without crashing. This index can be created by eating a Clap-and-Chuck while Mario has firepower. With the orb safely in the item box, it can be carried to wherever you want and released to finish the level immediately. Other interesting item swaps include indices 124 and 128, which will put a key in the item box and can be done with a Bouncin' or Whistlin' Chuck with Small Mario. Index 116 will put Lakitu's Cloud in the item box. This can be done while item swapping a normal Charge and Chuck with Small Mario. And if you item swap the Charge and Chuck with Big Mario instead, you'll get Index 117, which will put a Bullet Bill in reserve and give Mario invincibility. There are more ways to complete a level prematurely, such as spawning a Reznor boss and glitching a message block to trigger a Switch Palace, but those will be explained in a later video. Feel free to support me on Patreon in the meantime. I am a one-man team and working on editing in between my studies.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Gotta love Schrodinger's sprite. Both exists and doesn't exist at the same time. Video game programming is just whack. Anyways, hey Carpy, welcome to the stream. You are very late. Let's see, I should probably blow up another video, cause why not? What else are we gonna be doing? Here's an interesting one. Actually, I want to see if there's a thing. I want to see if thing exists. Nope, that's not the right tab. Huh. Okay. There's not a YouTube video about a certain glitch, so I will share it myself. There's an interesting glitch in the Generation 1 Pokemon games. I said this earlier in the stream, but not everyone was here earlier, so I'll say it again. There's an interesting glitch in the Generation 1 Pokemon games where you can lock a Ditto out of using Struggle. You can make it impossible for a Ditto to use Struggle, which, you know, every Pokemon is supposed to be able to use. I don't know the full technical explanation. I'm not retro game mechanics explained. But basically, due to how Gen 1 like stores moves or something, if a Ditto uses Transform on a Pokemon that knows Mirror Move, and then immediately uses Mirror Move, it'll create an empty move slot that has more than 0 power points. It'll create a non-move that has power points assigned to it, which, as one would think, is not normally possible. It's not intended to happen. So then, when that Ditto runs out of power points for Transform, because that's the only move it can normally learn, you try and use Struggle, but the game won't let you, because the game says, hey, you might not have any power points for Transform, but you still have power points for something. Do I know what that something is? No, but you still have power points, and so you can't use Struggle. And the thing is that non-move that has power points is permanent. There's no way to fix that Ditto, to remove that move. So once that Ditto has that non-move, it's permanently locked out of ever using Struggle. No matter what you do, nothing will bring the power points of that non-move down to 0 or lower. So that's pretty neat. But then, so it can't use Transform because it doesn't have power points for that, but it can't use Struggle because the game thinks it still has a move to use, but it can't use anything, so it can't attack in any way. But then, if that Ditto, with that non-move and with 0 power points left for Transform, then goes and fights another Pokemon, and that Pokemon uses Disable on that Ditto, the game crashes. Because the thing is that Disable in Generation 1 has 2 conditions to actually working. The first is that the move has power points left. Disable won't affect Transform because it doesn't have any power points left. So normally that would be the end of the story. Ditto can't learn any other moves, so there's nothing else for Disable to affect. However, Ditto still has that non-move with power points. So Disable points at that and says, hey, let's disable that. But there's a small problem. It isn't a move. It's nothing. And Disable, the other condition is that the move has to actually be a move. Disable can't complete what it's trying to do if the move doesn't exist. And the move doesn't exist. So the game just gets stuck in this loop of saying like, hey, let's disable this move. But there is no move. But there's power points. But there is no move. But there's power points. But there is no move. But there's power points. And so on. And it just crashes. Generation 1. The programming is held together by duct tape. And the worst part of this is, this was discovered like 1 or 2 years ago by a YouTuber called Pika Spray who sometimes does Pokemon challenges, like beating the game with only Ditto. He didn't understand what exactly happened, but like halfway through the run, he encountered that glitch and just couldn't use Struggle. And because he didn't really know how it worked or why it was happening, so for the rest of the run, he just couldn't use Struggle, which in a Ditto only run is kinda detrimental. thankfully, for everyone else, not thankfully for him, his comments section on that video figured out, how exactly the glitch worked. So we get to understand just how that happens. It's fucking stupid. Generation 1 is just a masterpiece. A masterpiece of just glitches. No, he did not lose his progress. He just continued with the run, just not being able to use struggle. Which, as you can imagine, is painful. The video's on YouTube. In fact, should we just watch that? It's only 24 minutes, which is like the entire rest of the stream, so why not? Okay, that should be paused. That's auto-generated captions, which we do not want. Yeah, let's just, watch this.
Hello Internet users, and welcome back to another thought-provoking video that explores human curiosity like you've never seen before. Just kidding, I'm doing something stupid in Pokemon again. So on my gameplay channel, I've been doing a ridiculous playthrough in Pokemon Crystal, where I have to beat the entire game using only a team of 6 Smeargles. And ever since I started that nonsense, I've gotten a ton of requests from people to do all sorts of other challenges. Among those suggestions, one of the most popular was the idea of completing a Pokemon game using only a team of Dittos. And just think about how insane that would be. Ditto can only use Transform, so every battle you'd have no choice but to try and win using your opponent's moveset, which now only has 5 PP for each move. On top of that, Ditto copies the stats of whatever it transforms into, except HP. So no matter how much grinding you do, the only benefit would be to your max health. But at the same time, I still think that sounds just a bit too easy with a full party of them. So how about I make it a little more interesting? What if instead of 6, I had only 1 Ditto to work with instead? Also, I can't use items in battle, because that's just a pretty lame way to play the game. As for the game, let's go with Ditto's homeland in Generation 1. Today, we'll find out if it's possible to go from start to finish using only this 1 Ditto to overcome every necessary battle throughout the game. Before we start though, I'm sure you viewers have a few questions that I need to first get out of the way. Some of you are probably wondering how I'm going to even have a Ditto at the start of the game. Well, it's simple. Through use of a cheating device, I can modify my chosen starter Pokemon to be a level 5 Ditto instead of a Charmander. Don't worry though, that's the only instance of cheating I'm going to do, as it's necessary to even set up this situation in the first place. The golden rule is that I can only use this 1 Ditto to battle with. However, as I'm sure you're all aware, Ditto cannot learn HM moves, so I will have to catch other Pokemon in order to progress at certain points. There are a few buildings and dungeons that require an HM user to be in my party, so during those instances, I'm going to make sure this Pokemon is left fainted so that it cannot be used in battle. If I had any other conscious Pokemon with me, I could easily just switch to it in order to reset Ditto's transform. Doing so would defeat the entire purpose of this challenge, so I'm doing this to make sure it cannot occur, even by accident. These are my rules, and that's what I'll be sticking to over the course of this playthrough. So without further ado, let's set it up and begin the challenge. Alright, now the beginning of the game is simple enough. It doesn't matter if I win or lose the first battle against my rival, and the second one is entirely optional. Even with a bit of grinding, it's not worth the time to take down his Squirtle using the power of his own Pidgey. I just end up dying from struggle recoil damage before I can win. I simply do the errand with Oak's Parcel and move on to the Viridian Forest as soon as I can. This place isn't very fun. This guy sends out a Weedle, which means I have no choice but to fight with Poison Sting and String Shot. Both, of course, only have 5 PP each after Transform is used. It's a pretty sad day when the first bug catcher in a Pokemon game is giving me trouble. Luckily, it's possible to skip over most of the trainers here. The only required fight is the very last one. This guy here has a level 9 Weedle. With a bit of grinding and luck with critical hits, I was able to take him down. Next up is Pewter City. In order to advance to the next route, all I have to do is defeat Brock. This, however, turned out to be quite the obstacle. When fighting Brock, I quickly realized that beating him wasn't going to be so simple. All his Geodude knows is Tackle and Defense Curl, not exactly what you want to use against two Rock-type Pokemon. Also, keep in mind that in Generation 1, Struggle counted as a normal-type move, and is affected by type resistances, meaning that it is not very effective against his Pokemon here. At this point, it seemed as though my only option was to grind to an absurd level in order to last through the battle. However, I actually managed to come up with an easier solution. Like I said earlier, when it uses Transform, Ditto copies every stat of the target Pokemon, except for HP. But, if I go into the Viridian Forest, Waste transforms PP on wild Metapods and Kakunas, then that means I can go into Brock's gym fight using Struggle from the get-go. And now instead of using the attack power of his Geodude, I'm hitting him with the actual strength of my higher level Ditto. Even if Struggle is not very effective, I'm dealing more than enough damage to plow through this fight. Who would have thought that in order to unlock Ditto's true potential, I had to get rid of the one thing that it's known for? With the first badge claimed, I've discovered a neat little trick I can do with my lone Pokemon. However, this strategy isn't always the best option. You see, this is how the recoil damage of Struggle works in Pokemon. In Generation 1, you take half of the damage that was dealt to the opponent with a move. In Generation 2 and 3, you take 1/4. And in Generation 4 and onward, the recoil is equal to 1/4 of the user's max HP. So attempting to use nothing but Struggle out in the field is a quick way to knock yourself out. Most of the time, it's much easier to just use Transform. That being said, how the battle goes is still entirely up to whatever the first Pokemon it is that your opponent sends out. As I was making my way through Mount Moon, I found that this challenge really flips the game's design around. Pokemon that are meant to be more difficult for this point in the game are easier to take down, due to the assortment of moves they have, and Pokemon that are weaker become an absolute chore, especially when the trainer has more than two. But with enough perseverance, I eventually made it to Cerulean City, where the next important battle takes place. For the next rival fight, he leads off with Pidgeotto, which is fairly good for taking on his team of 4. After that, I did a bit of training in the route to the north to prepare for the second gym battle. Misty is also a pretty annoying battle. Her Staryu only knows Tackle and Water Gun, and it's a guarantee that you'll be running out of PP while against her Starmie. Although I came close, the recoil knocked me out before I could win. After that, I tried my Struggle strategy against her. This time we both got KO'd at the same time, which still counts as a loss for the player. So at that point, I just continued on in the game, leveling up in areas around Vermilion City. On my third try, I got an incredibly lucky critical hit, which made the rest of the battle a walk in the park. Now, I'm sure by this point you all have a pretty good idea of what my strategies are and how I deal with the regular trainers. So for the sake of this video not going on forever, we're going to start jumping ahead to some of the bigger battles throughout the game. The next one is the rival battle on the SS Anne. This one was pretty simple. His first Pokemon, Pidgeotto, gives you the moves and power to make quick work of his team like before. Now we move on to Lieutenant Surge. Just a reminder, I need a Pokemon that knows Cut in order to get inside this gym. And to make sure I keep to my rules, the Farfetch'd that I brought with me is fainted, so it cannot be used in battle. Despite my high level, the fact that his first Pokemon is Voltorb makes this a little tricky. All I have to work with are Tackle, Screech, and Sonic Boom. And remember, because I'm transforming at the start, my opponent will always get a free move against me. His Voltorb and Pikachu are simple enough, but the real concern is his Raichu. I got really close, but I lost on my first attempt. For the second try, I used the Struggle strategy and just barely had enough HP left when I defeated Raichu. After some tedious battles through Rock Tunnel, I eventually reached the rival battle in Lavender Town. Once again, he starts off with a Pidgeotto. This fight is pretty much luck. The darn thing always hits me with Sand Attack, and in total, I only have 10 PP for my damage-dealing moves. All you can do is hope that you land enough hits, otherwise you're going to have to spend 10 turns exhausting the other 2 moves in order to use Struggle. Now we're on to the first encounter with Giovanni at the Rocket Hideout. His first Pokemon is an Onix, which is both a blessing and a curse. Although it's not really a powerhouse, none of Giovanni's Pokemon have any moves that are strong against it. With a bit of patience, I was able to whittle down his entire party's health. My next destination is the Celadon City Gym. Considering that most of the Pokemon here are grass and poison type that mostly have moves of the same type, I don't even bother using Transform and go in with the struggle strategy from the get-go. I had just enough HP to last through the battle with Erica. With the 4th badge earned, I now need to climb the Pokemon Tower in order to save Mr. Fuji and obtain the Pokeflute. This particular area is a bit unique when it comes to this challenge. The majority of the Pokemon that you fight here are Ghastlies and Haunters, all of which know the move Nightshade. Nightshade deals damage equal to the user's level, so my Ditto can take down opponents quite quickly here. Reaching and defeating the Rocket Grunts on the top floor, it doesn't take very long. Now that I've got the Pokeflute, it's time to head to Fuchsia City for the next badge. Because of the types of Pokemon the trainers here use, I figure it's once again easier to go in right away using the struggle... What? The game won't let me use struggle. Ordinarily, all you have to do is hit the fight option without any PP, and the game will automatically use it. But here I can't do anything. I can't attack, I can't run, I can't switch to anything. I know I'm technically breaking my own rules here, but I don't really have a choice but to waste turns by using the Pokeflute, otherwise I'm just stuck. I have to do this every turn in order to let myself get knocked out by this Drowsy. Well, that did work at first, but then it used Disable, which caused the game to be permanently stuck on this text box. Since the game can't decide whether or not I'm out of moves to use, my guess is that it has no idea what to do when Disable is used on me. Apparently I just soft-locked the game. I wasn't even trying to this time. And of course, my last save was made at the Pokemon Tower, so it looks like I'm going to have to do a few things again. After replaying to this point, I was able to use Struggle against this trainer like normal. I guess this is just another instance of Gen 1 just being Gen 1. Anyway, now I need to get ready for the battle against Koga. In order to get some fast EXP, I decide to use the struggle strategy against some of the trainers on a nearby route and... Are you kidding me right now? It happened again! I don't understand how, but it did! Alright, now this is where this run took a completely unexpected turn. No matter what I do now, whenever I enter into battle without any PP, this glitch occurs. I've tried turning the game on and off, but that didn't solve the issue. Now I know for a fact that I used the struggle strategy when I was replaying the part in the Pokemon Tower, so this can only mean that there is something in or near Fuchsia City that is causing this to occur. As a little experiment to try and understand what's going on with my game, I took one of my HM slaves, my Nidoking, and I exhausted all of the PP for his moves as well. To my surprise, Nidoking uses Struggle like normal, but even if I switch to Ditto in the same battle, it still can't do anything. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, my Ditto forgot how to use Struggle. I tried a few other things like putting Ditto into the PC, leaving it at the daycare, giving it a rare candy, but no matter what I do, this glitch seems to be here to stay. As much as it sucks, I don't really have much of a choice but to continue the challenge like this. So after a lot of grinding, I challenge Koga. This is not a fun fight. His first Pokemon is a Coughing, whose moves are not going to be able to deal much damage to his own Pokemon. On top of that, they have moves like Smokescreen and Minimize, so every turn all you can do is just hope that you can land a hit. Another curious thing to note here is that Ditto is still able to use Struggle while transformed. With a bit of luck, I eventually get enough critical hits to reach his last Pokemon, Weezing, and when you know it, it uses Self-Destruct and takes me down. Considering how luck-dependent this battle is, for the time being, I decide to head to the Sylph Building in Saffron City. Taking care of Team Rocket here will level me up a little, so I'll stand a better chance against Koga later. The first important battle here is against my rival. His first Pokemon is Pidgeot, but unfortunately, its move pool leaves a bit to be desired. At my Ditto's current level, its HP is able to keep it alive through the fight. Now we're on to the second encounter with Giovanni. This is another difficult one. He leads off with Nidorino, who does not have the moves to deal with the rest of his Pokemon. Oh, and in case you weren't aware, in Generation 1 games, Focus Energy is bugged. Instead of increasing your critical hit rate, it actually lowers it instead. Giovanni has 4 Pokemon in total, and I can barely make it past his second. All I can really do is hope for critical hits. That Fury attack always hits 5 times, and that Poison Sting poisons some of his Pokemon. After quite a few attempts, I managed to make it to his Nidoqueen, but by then I'm only one hit away from fainting and my options are limited. But that wasn't going to stop me. I proceeded to throw myself into this fight over and over until I finally got some positive results. As you can probably tell by my level, I was trying to beat him for a while. Alright, now before anything else, it's time to pay Koga another visit. It still took another handful of tries, but this time I had the HP to survive his wheezing using self-destruct. Now that that's over with, we're going straight to the next gym battle against Sabrina. Fun fact, this girl is the very reason that I didn't attempt this challenge in Pokemon Yellow. You see, her team is very different in that game compared to Red and Blue. Her first Pokemon is an Abra that only knows Teleport and Flash. Here she starts with a Kadabra, who only has Psychic-type moves for dealing damage. Incredibly, on my first try, I take down both her Kadabra and Mr. Mime with critical hits. And obviously her Venomoth is no trouble at all. Why does she even have that thing anyway? Wouldn't it have made more sense to give her a Hypno or something? However, trouble starts when she sends out her Alakazam. Due to how AI works in this generation, Alakazam will do nothing but use Recover over and over, since its other moves would not be very effective against me. And just another reminder, enemy Pokemon in this generation do not consume PP, so that means it will heal itself infinitely. Using Disable wasn't much help, and it isn't long until I'm forced to use Struggle. Eventually, I get another critical hit, which takes it down from full health. I'm sure you're all noticing a pattern here. The further I get into the game, the more critical hits are pretty much necessary to make it through some battles. It's kind of unfortunate that most of it's becoming just a game of chance here. With another badge claimed, it's time to head to Cinnabar Island. The second last gym battle is against Blaine. His first Pokemon is Growlithe, who is definitely pretty useful here. Use Agility to boost my speed and Leer to lower his defenses, and I can plow through his team with Takedown. Though I actually lost on my first attempt, something weird happened here. When he sent out his Rapidash, he used a Super Potion on it while it was at full health. I also noticed that it happened after I attacked that turn too. Unless I'm mistaken, wasn't the opponent using an item always supposed to have priority? Also, this happened again when he sent out his Arcanine. I don't even know what's going on in this playthrough anymore. Was this always a thing in Gen 1? Because I don't remember anything like this ever happening to me before. Is it because I modified my starter at the beginning? Is this some kind of side effect of that? I really don't know. Anyways, with Blaine defeated, there's just one more badge to get. Heading back to Viridian City, I'm gonna see my friend Giovanni once more. His first Pokemon, Rhyhorn, is a challenge to work with. At first glance, having the one-hit KO move Horn Drill seems like a blessing. But in a Generation 1 game, these kinds of moves will fail if the target Pokemon is faster than the user. Obviously, since I'm copying this Rhyhorn stats, we tie, and I can use the move to get him out of the picture. But that also works the other way around, and he can just end the battle on the first turn while I'm transforming. Now from here, I figured I could use Tail Whip to lower his Pokemon's defenses to my advantage. But every time he sends out another Pokemon, he uses a guard spec, preventing me from lowering their stats. His Doug Trio is also a big problem, as it's faster than me and can deal a lot of damage with Dig. Also, did you know that he can use items on it while it's underground? I didn't know that. I don't like that. By the way, his Nidoqueen can potentially poison me with Poison Sting and paralyze with Body Slam. If either of those two things happen, it's pretty much a guaranteed loss from there. But as if that wasn't bad enough, his last Pokemon, Rhydon, knows Fissure. So even if I get good luck against all of his other Pokemon, he can end everything with just a single move. This is without a doubt the most difficult battle so far. In order to win, everything has to go exactly a certain way. It's nothing but luck here. Even after reaching the max level, and still suffering defeat after defeat, I got really close, so I know it can be done. Eventually, after countless attempts, I got the result I wanted, with just a shred of HP left. With all 8 badges in my possession, it's time to head to the Pokemon League. But first, my rival isn't going to let me head there until I battle him. You'd probably think that at level 100, I'd have little trouble here, but that wasn't the case. Once again, he leads with Pidgeot. However, half of its moves are useless here, and the remaining 2 aren't enough to bring down his entire team, especially since a Rhyhorn is a part of it. It's near impossible to get through this battle without struggle, so I have no choice but to waste all of Agility and Whirlwind at the beginning, hope that he doesn't hit me too much in those 10 turns, and then pray that RNG gives me a critical hit or two before I run out of PP. After a while, I finally managed to win, even despite him using a random potion at the last second there. Alright, now this is the final stretch of the game. Victory Road was a walk in the park. I have no need for EXP anymore, so I just avoided the majority of the trainers there. Once through, I reached the Indigo Plateau, where the Elite Four are waiting for me and my little friend. First up, I'm paying a visit to my absolute favorite person in this game, Lorelei. This time, I actually intend to beat her. It was during this fight that my luck really turned around. Before that stupid dugong could attempt to heal itself over and over, I took it down with a critical hit. In fact, I actually got a lot of critical hits during this fight. Even if that wasn't the case, there wasn't a whole lot to be worried about here. Because Ditto transformed into Dugong, it has access to rest, so when it finally came time for her Lapras, I used the last of my PP by healing, meaning that I could finish it off easily with Struggle, without worrying about any recoil. The second member of the Elite Four is Bruno. Although most of his party is fighting types, he actually has 2 Onyxes, one of which he sends out first. You might think this is a really bad situation to be in, but this is actually very good. Why? Because this Onyx knows Rage. For those unfamiliar with how this move works in Gen 1, I'll tell you right quick. Once it hits, the move will go on forever, until either the user wins the battle, or is knocked out by the opponent. And while in this continuous state, the move will no longer consume PP, and their attack will increase with every hit they take. So once my Ditto transforms, all I have to do is use Harden 5 times to maximize my defense, use Rage, and his entire team will suffer a slow but sure death. Only downside is that it takes an eternity to make both of his Onyxes faint. Even his powerful Machamp can't do anything to... I was actually scared for a moment there. 2 down, 2 more to go. Agatha is going to be the next opponent. The Gengar she starts with couldn't be more perfect. I've already explained why Nightshade is really good, Confuse Ray speaks for itself, and the Hypnosis and Dream Eater combo will keep my HP filled up for most of the fight. With barely any trouble, I can take her down easily. And now it's time to take on Lance. There's definitely a lot of luck involved with this one. Because Gen 1 is Gen 1, if you KO a Pokemon with Hyper Beam, you won't have to waste the next turn recharging when the next one is sent out. By exploiting this, I make quick work of his Gyarados and 2 Dragonairs. Hydro Pump destroys his Aerodactyl, but his last Pokemon, Dragonite, is a real headache. If it wasn't for the fact that he missed his Hyper Beam here, I'd be done. At any point in this battle, you can be KO'd here and there's little you can do about it. But I won, so let's get a move on to the game's last battle. Surprise, surprise, Ditto is going to have to transform into Pidgeot. But this time, there are a few new tricks to use. Mainly, Mirror Move and Sky Attack, a 2-turn charge move. His Pidgeot isn't a problem at all, but his next Pokemon, Alakazam, is scary. It does a bit of damage with Psychic, but luckily I took it out with a single wing attack. Next up is Rhydon. Obviously all of my offensive moves are not very effective here, so I take advantage of Mirror Move and lower its defenses as it does the same to me. Once I run out of Mirror Moves though, it starts trying to use Horn Drill, but luckily I'm unable to be hit by it, and as Rhydon continues the try, I make it faint with Sky Attack. His Arcanine is no trouble at all. It wastes a turn trying to use Roar, and I one-shot it with another Sky Attack. Exeggutor goes down with 2 wing attacks, but not before getting my HP uncomfortably low. For the final Pokemon, Blastoise, it could easily finish me off with anything, but it happens to know Blizzard, a move that doesn't have the best accuracy. Because of how the AI works in this game, it attempts to only try and use Blizzard on me because it's super effective. Incredibly, it misses me twice and I'm able to land the last hit, knocking out the last Pokemon in the game. And that's it. I've beaten the first generation of Pokemon using nothing but a single Ditto. And the absolute icing on the cake? When Professor Oak walks into the room, he even acknowledges that Ditto was the Pokemon I left Palatown with. I always thought that the Pokemon he mentions was simply based on whatever Pokeball was taken, not what Pokemon was actually obtained. Fun fact. If you use cheats to leave Palatown without receiving a starter, and then beat the league, the text he says here becomes a garbled mess as a result. Overall, this challenge did not turn out like I had expected. I mean, sure, there was definitely a lot of tedious grinding I had to do just to stand a chance at certain points, but when I first went into it, I had never even considered the possibility of using Struggle as Ditto. And neither did I expect the game to glitch out and take that tactic away from me. By the way, if you're wondering, I checked after I beat the game. My Ditto is still glitched. Seriously, I don't know why this happened. Feel free to let me know if you've got the answer. Now, I love the idea of crazy self-imposed challenges, but when it comes to this Ditto playthrough, it's definitely not something I'd recommend to another person to try. I'm sure that most of you noticed.
Yeah. Well, that's the video. And with it, that's basically the stream. Because it's been basically 3 hours. So, we're gonna just call the stream here. I'm gonna back out of that. We did manage to get at least part of what we wanted to done. Our entire team is level 60 or higher. Off stream, I am going to grind up Pep and Pep up to level 70, maybe 75, probably just level 70. And hopefully that helps against the Elite Four. We'll see on the next stream. So yeah, that's it for the stream today. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks to Real Life Brothers for tuning in. For those unaware, Real Life Brothers are streamers. They do stuff. They're cool. Check them out. Also, I should probably mention Retro Game Mechanics Explained, the YouTube channel we watched earlier this stream, and Pika Spray, the video we just watched. So yeah, thanks for tuning into the stream, and I will see you all on the next stream, hopefully. Oh yeah, obligatory mention that I have a YouTube channel. Currently it just has VODs on it, but it will get an edited video of this whole challenge. And I also have a Discord if you want to join, talk. Currently there isn't much going on, but you never know. You never know. Anyways, yeah, that's the stream. See ya.